Folks, it's been a minute. We know you've been waiting for it. We're hyped about it because guess what? Muelendez Sports Spectrum is finally back on your screens, in your headphones. AJ, my brother, about to start another semester down at the U in Coral Gables. How you feeling, my brother?
Well, we're feeling great. We're 2 weeks away from some Canes football. We already got, volleyball starting up today. Women's soccer already started. So there's a lot of fall sports buzz, I think, right here in CG.
Yes, yes, most definitely. None bigger than Canes football. Lots of new faces on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball in terms of both players and coaches. But let's get right into it. Canes football ranked 10th in the AP preseason poll. They opened up the season in just 2 weeks at Hard Rock Stadium against the number six ranked Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, who are coming off of a incredible season where after losing their first home game of the year, starting out the season 1-1, where they were basically written off by everybody, ran the table, ran all the way through the CFP, and ended up facing the Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship game. And that game was pretty back and forth early until Ohio State played like Ohio State normally does. But no face is bigger on the Canes football roster than quarterback Carson Beck. He comes in and fills the void left by Cam Ward, who Miami got in the transfer portal last season, and Cam goes on to have arguably the best season in UM quarterback history, throwing for over 4,300 yards and 37 touchdowns, was a Heisman finalist, and was drafted number one overall by the Tennessee Titans. AJ, what are you most looking forward to about just this game in particular or just this Canes football season in general?
I think it's a pretty spectacular way to start season off, to face the team to beat, right? And looking forward, well, now and I got to admit my own bias, like now working for the AP, of course, I love the polling, love the top 10 for the U, but we have to just focus on the fact that of course you're facing an incredible Notre Dame team and these are some of, maybe the most high pressure moments that someone at Miami has faced in quite a while because the expectation is really sky high for Carson Beck. And I want to make this clear from the get-go. Carson Beck is not Cam Ward. He is not as good as Cam Ward. I'm sorry. It's the truth. So I think as long as people, especially Miami fans, are okay with that expectation, understand that it is what it is, that it's most likely going to be a slow start. I'm a little bit nervous about the first game. I think it'll be great. I think hopefully it creates enough hype because, as you know, Hard Rock Stadium being an hour plus away from campus, even on a Sunday night, creates a lot of problems for people getting up to the stadium. But I think that the hype will be enough to the point where, Hard Rock's going to be packed out. I think local fans, that grew up in Miami-Dade or Broward are really also going to be able to add to that crowd. And that should be something that should help the Hurricanes, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But with Carson Beck coming off his injury, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what that's been like. I think it's a very hard start because you're getting thrown into the fire right away. There's no warm up. It's here you go. Play the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like the game of the week. I mean, obviously, you could also throw Ohio State, Texas in there, week one, Lee Corso's final show on College Game Day. I mean, LSU and Clemson, Battle of the Death Valley is also going on in week one. There are a lot of really good opening season matchups. I think Texas, Ohio State, and Miami, Notre Dame are arguably the top two. And Miami Notre Dame is actually going to be a nationally televised game, 7:30 on ABC. Two top 10 teams going at it. And I know that a lot of people were questioning, wait, why is Miami in the top 10? They don't even have a roster as good as they did last year. Let's not forget, Mario Cristobal is an excellent, excellent recruiter. Him and his entire coaching staff. So yes, they lost their number one receiver in Xavier Restrepo. Yes, they lost a lot of production in the quarterback room with Cam Ward obviously getting drafted. But it's like you mentioned, Carson Beck isn't Cam Ward. All right, that's a fact. That's agreed upon nationally, universally. But let's not forget Carson Beck still threw, despite an injury ridiculed season last year, he still threw for over 3,400 yards and 28 touchdowns and completed over 60% of his passes. Let's not forget that. And yes, he did have a lot of inconsistency in the receiver room. Georgia led the nation in drops last year from their receiving core, or top five, but I know that they were like top two or three. I know that. But now you have a wide receiver room that's led by a young freshman in Malachi Tony, veteran receiver prospects in CJ Daniels, the LSU transfer. You have a lot of guys, and then that's just in the receiving core. He's also got a really good offensive line with Inez Cooper and CC Malioa, who's arguably supposed to be a top three projected pick in the 2026 NFL draft. You have Inez Cooper on the line. Um, you've got Sam Lola also on there. Let's not forget Miami's offensive line is like 6'6", 6'7" on average, and they're averaging like 280 to 315. Let's not forget that. Yeah, it's a
What did you say?
big
666 what, Mike? What was
like
it?
6'6", 6'7", I don't know. Somewhere around there. They're massive. It's a massive offensive line, and he's got a really, really good running back room, headlined by Mark Fletcher Jr., headlined by Jordan Lyle. Miami's entire offensive scheme is perfectly designed to fit Carson Beck and to fit this young, speedy, dynamic play style that Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson want to run this year. I mean, yes, we saw Cam Ward did a lot of scrambling outside of the pocket last year, but that was only when he needed to. He was never really forced out of the pocket. He had all day to throw. His poise and his nonchalantness in the pocket, it transformed the Miami quarterback position. We never saw anything like that. I mean, we were seeing him just stand back there holding onto the ball for like 4 or 5 seconds, and then finally he lets it go. And sure enough, Xavier Restrepo, Elijah Arroyo, Riley Williams, all those guys were practically wide open. And even if so, when he had to do it with his legs, he did it with his legs. Cam Ward was everything for Miami's offense last year. Miami's offense led the nation in scoring at over 40 points a game, but then it was their defense that let them down. But now with Corey Heatherman, the new defensive coordinator coming in from Minnesota, where he transformed the Golden Gophers program from a mediocre defense into one of the top defenses in the Big Ten, let alone the entire country. This is a defense that is retooled, rebuilt, and regrouped. And I think there's no bigger statement that you can make by going out and shutting up every single media outlet that's saying, yes, Miami's at home. Yes, Miami has Carson Beck. Yes, Miami has a really good team. But this is Notre Dame we're talking about. Yes, they're coached by Marcus Freeman. Okay, yes, he's a great coach. I'm not going to deny that. Yes, Notre Dame has a really good team around them. I'm not going to deny that. But are they going to have the same repeated success as last year? I don't know. They don't have Riley Leonard anymore, and they're having two freshmen fight for the quarterback spot. So that's an issue alone because you don't have that same experience, that same veteran presence under center that you would prefer to have, especially going on the road to start your season in the ACC, night crowd at Hard Rock Stadium. That game's going to be a sellout. And I know people are going to go out and say, "Oh, Miami can't sell out." Da, 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 da. Okay, fine. You try driving an hour away from your campus to go see a football game. You try driving an hour, hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours in traffic on a Sunday night to go see a football game. Hard Rock Stadium's going to be a sellout in week one. And just let's not just talk about this game. Miami's entire schedule overall, they don't leave the state of Florida until November 1st. Their first true road game outside of Florida isn't until SMU, November 1st. That's wild. And their first four games are at home. Notre Dame, Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, and Florida. This is a schedule that is built for Miami to go 12 and 0, floor minimum maybe 9-3, 10-2, somewhere around there. Miami's definitely not getting less than 9 wins. Their ceiling would obviously be 12 and 0, ACC champions, And I was watching this the other day, ACC Road Trip on ESPN when they were at Miami. They said that now is the time to win a championship, not just a conference championship, because yes, Mario Cristobal's going into his fourth year as head coach of the Canes. And if he doesn't get it done now, he's probably going to be on the hot seat. Because when he first came to the U, he did only sign a 5 year contract. Let's not forget about that. So going into his fourth year, 5 wins, 7 wins, 10 wins. Okay, great. No ACC titles, no national championship run, no bowl game wins. People are starting to go, is this Manny Diaz all over again? Like, what are we doing here? But Mario Cristobal is obviously a much better coach than Manny Diaz. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on what this new defense is going to look like under Corey Heatherman, and what things are you expecting for this offense and for this team as a whole?
Yeah, to start on the offensive side because I think there's a couple things there. There's obviously um you got Mario, you have offense side of the ball, defense side of the ball. That's kind of what it is. And really, I think what's been interesting is listen to this. Because apparently someone close to Shannon Dawson, was telling some people in the media, he loves Carson Beck, thinks he's, been very impressive. Obviously, it's very difficult because I've been saying it since the spring. Does Carson Beck's arm work? Does it work? His security system clearly didn't work. Um, didn't help him with those car robberies. But sorry, it's just we. It's been a wild. It's already been a wild. Um, and now Cavender-less ride for Carson Beck. Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying we're focused. We're talking about football, but we got to remember we've been talking about everything Carson Beck since he got here, and so far this report right here is the first thing we've really heard directly football related about. How's his elbow? All right, how are his cars? How's his girlfriend? That's all good and well when you're QB1 at the U. But Shannon Dawson, a source close to him, said that they think that they might have another number one pick in Carson back then. And I'm taking that direct quote. So it's interesting to see the perspective when you look at people like me who's like, no chance. Is he another Cam Ward? No chance, especially because you look at it again, he had about 65%, I think it was like 64, 7%. Completion rate. He still threw under 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns for Georgia before transferring. So it's just kind of, you know, interceptions were also a little high at 12. So you just kind of think, okay, post injury, are those numbers going to be where they are? How much does Shannon help with that? And then I think on the defensive end, it's been something that is going to be very interesting. I think Xavier Lucas is a huge get for Miami. And again, everything in that case has been related to things off the field because there's Wisconsin alleging tampering. I'm not going to go ahead and say that Miami did that. I do think it's a bit strange, or, Xavier Lucas, he's a Florida guy, but he still would have had to be very agenda driven to say, okay, nobody from Miami contacted me, but I'm leaving Wisconsin. I'm their best defensive player and I'm going to Miami. Maybe that was it all along, but that's kind of the legal battle that, again, that's not for us to make the judgment because, a judge will determine, what is more feasible in that case. But that, is obviously something very interesting. And right now, before we dive into the kind of more general college football landscape, there's a lot of talk now about NIL, new rules going into place, executive orders. But to just finish on the Miami side, I think Cristobal, a lot of people, don't like him, don't like the way he conducts the program. Uh, and maybe I guess you could call it the aura or lack thereof that he and the rest of his coaching staff give to the team. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, like you mentioned, all of that matters less, and people will talk about it less if the results come. And like you mentioned, we need to see. maybe an ACC championship at minimum. I think that's kind of the expectation, especially when you get ranked 10th in preseason. Uh, and then, especially now, expanded playoff. Let's get into the playoff. Let's make a run. Let's win at least one game in there. It's these sort of things that when you get paid the big bucks, you get the big expectations that come with it. And eventually, you have to start having those results.
No doubt about that. And let's not forget, Miami started last season on the road at Florida, ranked as the number 19 team in the AP preseason poll with Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo in that entirely revamped offense. And they ended up winning their first 9 games, and then a defensive collapse in the last 3 weeks of the season led to their downfall. Just they're playing the ACC in general. Their defense allowed like 30 points a game, 35 points a game, or something like that. You're not going to win championships if you give up 35 points a game in conference play. I mean, that's just a given. But Canes fans, be sure to watch on ABC 7:30, August 31st, Notre Dame, Miami. 6 versus 10. It's going to be an absolute slugfest. And my prediction, for a little bit of context, the last time that these two teams played was in 2017. Notre Dame was ranked third, Miami was ranked seventh. They hosted College Game Day on the UM campus. Coach Richt, Mark Richt, former Hurricane quarterback, was at the helm of the program. Malik Rozier was the starting quarterback of that team. Who could forget Braxton Berrios, probably the best heart and soul type program receiver outside of Xavier Restrepo. Same thing with Michael Irvin and all those guys. Miami put the molly whopping on Notre Dame, 41-8. Notre Dame was 7-1, Miami was 7-0 going into that game, and it was a beatdown. It was not close at all. Yes, Miami gave up a pity touchdown right at the end of the game, but they won the turnover battle. And I feel like if Miami can win the turnover battle here in this game in 2 weeks, they're going to win this game because their offense is as capable of putting up 40 to 50 points a game as well as anybody. But we'll obviously be paying attention. I may or may not be making the trip down to go see that game. So if I do see you there, AJ, it's going to be a blast, no doubt about that. But let's go ahead and talk about more generalization of the college football season. The AP preseason poll was released just a few days ago, and as a shock to many, the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes were not the number one ranked team. They were ranked third in the preseason poll behind Texas, and Penn State. A bunch of other teams in the mix. You have Georgia up there at 5. You've got, I think, Clemson was up there as well. Notre Dame 6, Miami at 10. Florida at 15, I think, is a little interesting. Miami's going to host Florida in week 4 at Hard Rock Stadium. That game time is to be announced at a later date and time. Um, a lot of new faces in this AP poll. I know that LSU was actually ranked pretty low. Alabama starting out at 8 is pretty wild in the post Saban era. Second season for Kalen DeBoer as head coach of the Crimson Tide. Big games to watch out for. Obviously, number one Texas going to Columbus to play Ohio State. Arch Manning's first full season as the Longhorns starting quarterback, who Paul Feinbaum apparently just loves to ride his you know what strap and say that he's the number one pick. Oh, he's the future, this is Peyton and Eli reincarnated. Slow down because we haven't even seen Arch at his full potential yet. You're saying that he's going to go out there and win the Heisman 3 weeks before the season even starts? And you have to go to Columbus, Ohio to play the national champions? I don't know. I don't know. And then obviously Miami, Notre Dame, LSU, Clemson, a couple of big games in the early window of the college football season. And then we get the debut of Bill Belichick coaching college football when North Carolina hosts TCU in
Is his
Chapel Hill.
girlfriend going to be there?
Most likely, I wouldn't be surprised if she's going to be on the sidelines. Um, but he says that she's been no distraction to the program at all. But
No,
AJ,
definitely not.
what are
Right?
you most
Would
looking
you
forward
agree, Mike?
to?
Did you agree?
I don't know. No comment. No comment on that situation. But AJ, what are you most looking forward to about the early schedule, early season window about college football? Week one, biggest game to watch out for outside of our game, which is Notre Dame Miami. And what shocked you most about the AP poll?
Yeah, I think Alabama being as high as they were, because look, when it came time last year for the poll, for the I guess final polling for the playoff, to determine seeding, everybody was kind of worried about, okay, if it comes down to Alabama, Miami, Alabama is gonna get it, is gonna get in over Miami. People were very afraid of that, and of course, the name carries a lot of weight because for so many years, Alabama has been the powerhouse of college football. But I don't see how you can put them that high early. That was the big shock to me. I was honestly a little bit surprised that Miami did crack the top 10. I think there is again, and I think it does all the off the field things that have happened to Carson Beck since he got to the 305 honestly do help the hype train a little bit because you kind of say, all right, this team is back. It's fun. They got swag. And that's always what the U has been about. So those were the two surprises for me from the poll. And I think again, I want to watch Arch Manning. He's a humble kid, honestly, because everybody always asks him, you're a quarterback. Your name is Manning. That has to mean a lot of weight on your shoulders. You have to feel that. And he's just, really, and as cliche as, oh, I'm just here to play football. I'm just here to play football. But I really do think he embodies that sort of spirit. So again, is the hype um really worth it to put on his shoulders this early? For example, and I'm just looking, this just came out a little bit ago, about an hour ago. Um, Well, he's the betting favorite, Arch Manning, the betting favorite to win the Heisman. Um, and here's the thing: there's been a couple people. Paul Feinbaum was saying that Arch Manning's generational. He's the next big thing. Again, who knows at this point? I'm not in the business of football scouting. I couldn't tell you if he's really got what it takes. Even if I was, we know scouts get it wrong all the time. But the thing is, one anonymous SEC coach already came out and said, with the amount of hype and pressure being put on this kid, it's going to be impossible to reach the hype that it's been. And I honestly have to agree with that. Um, and so his own grandpa even said, like you were saying, people are saying he's a Heisman candidate. You're not a Heisman Trophy candidate when you haven't played but 3 games. It's crazy. And and that's the thing. I know we had discussed it a little bit when it came to college basketball in the NBA. Is Cooper Flag going to come back for another season? His grandpa saying, I would kind of rather him, you know, um, be at Texas again than, enter into the draft earlier than he should. But again, it's just so early to be having all these discussions. I know ESPN likes their way too early. Um, rate rankings, but I think it's too early to be having those discussions. But I think it will be very fun to watch him take on the national champions because it's going to be something that again from the get-go, just like Miami, there's no warm up. We're right into it. So that's going to be that's I think what we have to look out for. And again, um, the NIL rules changing as much as they have, and the executive order that's into place that gives protection to the NCAA, and in a lot of ways, and also really trying to stop the pay for play idea. And we're gonna see this is the first season where it's a new era of college football, but it's kind of under older NIL rules. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I do agree with everything that you said, especially Paul Feinbaum and all the media outlets saying that Carson, or not Carson Beck, Arch Manning is the Heisman winner. He's the betting favorite. He's a Heisman finalist guaranteed to show up in New York in December. And it's like you said, the name Manning holds a lot of weight to it because you're following the footsteps of your two uncles, Peyton and Eli, who are arguably two of the greatest NFL quarterbacks to have ever lived and played the game. Peyton, first overall pick in 1998, um, goes on to win two Super Bowl titles. Eli Manning, first overall pick in 2004, he ends up going on to win two Super Bowl titles, defeating the greatest teams of our era, the '07 Patriots and the 2011 Patriots. Um, but the fact that he's only started three games in his career and the fact that you're playing with almost an entirely new system, yes, Steve Sarkisian's a great coach and he's going to help you be successful. But this is Ohio State we're talking about. This is the elite of the elite, a defending national champion who, yes, they did lose a lot of talent in Will Howard, Emeka Egbuka, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, just to name a few. Ohio State's going to be nasty this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, which is a shock to say that just because they are coming off of a national championship. But I feel like if this is anybody's year to win a national title, it's Texas, it's Miami, it's Notre Dame, it's all those like college football blue blood programs of like the early days. Because, Miami ended up winning four titles in the early 80s, early 90s, and then another one in '01. Ohio State won all those titles way back when, and then now they've won two titles in the college football playoff era, 2014 and now 2024. Um, it's huge. I don't know how well Arch is going to play. Do I think he's going to be a good quarterback? Absolutely. Not denying that. But is he going to start by going out and putting up 45 on Ohio State on the road? I don't think so. I don't think so. I do think he is going to be a Heisman finalist, but do I think he's going to win it? I don't know. Still way too early to tell. Still way too early to tell. I do think Bill Belichick is going to be successful in college football. Might not have the same early success as he did in the NFL when he was coaching the Patriots, but you know what? It's obviously a lot different college football than the NFL. You're not coaching, you know, 26 to 41-year-old veteran players. You're coaching 18, 19, hell, in Ryan Williams' case, 17-year-old kids who are still learning to navigate how to play the game and how to be a responsible, mature adult in this world. And for someone his age and his experience, I don't think he's going to have a problem with that. I think just adjusting to the speed and the business of college football, which is now starting to become like the NFL in terms of it is a business with the NIL, with the transfer portal, with all the media revenue that these teams are generating. It's a changing game, and I think this college football season is going to say a lot about several teams. It's going to say a lot about Miami. Are they really back after last season? It's going to say a lot about Ohio State. Can they repeat even without all their star players? Is Arch Manning the future of football? Is Notre Dame finally going to break out of their slump? I don't know. Still a lot to tell, but obviously a lot to pay attention to here. Next week, we'll have college football kicking off in Dublin, Ireland with Iowa State, Kansas State. That's going to be a good game in the Big 12. And then the following weekend, we are going to see Miami, Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, TCU,
We're back.
UNC. It's a whole bunch of games, huge excitement to start the year. The best time of the year is back, college football season. But that's just about going to do it for us here on the Melendez Sports Spectrum. AJ's going to have all of his socials down in the description below. We're going to have all of my descriptions down in the socials below. Make sure you follow El Maestro Media on all socials, Insta, X, wherever you get your media outlook. YouTube will post this episode on there as well. It's going to be a banger. Guys, thank you so much. We know it's been a long time, but we will see you next time for our college football week 1 recap.